Now we're turning to activist art and feminist art. And before we get into feminist art, what is activist art? Well, activist art is sort of an umbrella term. It's very much like conceptual art. These are forms of art or specific artists working on specific themes that are focusing on activist ideas. So we'll see, for example, feminist art as a specific form of activist art. These are ideas that are art acting as social consciousness, art trying to draw your attention to a specific issue. We will also see activist art in terms of environmental art and ephemeral art shortly. But here we're dealing specifically with feminist art. And the idea here is that they're trying to call our attention to a specific thing. This is art as social consciousness, or artist as social consciousness, an idea that goes back to the mid-19th century, to realism. But we're seeing it here dealing with a very modern idea. Now, let's talk about feminist art specifically. So especially since the late 1960s, when the feminist art movement can be said to have emerged, women have been particularly interested in what makes them different from men. What makes woman artists and their art different from male artists and their art. And this is part of what's known as second wave feminism. And some of this, in terms of definition, is still in the air. First wave would be looking at ideas of suffrage and general equality. Second wave, you're dealing with equal pay, equal rights at work. And third wave is really difficult to define because we're in the period now, so it's hard to really set a definition. But the feminist art that we're looking at is really part of what would be termed second wave feminism. Feminism of the 1960s and 70s, based on the ideas of Simone Beauvoir or Betty Friedan or others. And this has been most prominent, feminist art has been most prominent in the United States, Britain, and Germany, although there are numerous precursors to the movement. And it has spread to many other cultures since the 1970s. So we do see it all over the place. Just recently we had a Japanese artist who got into all sorts of trouble after taking a 3D scan of her vulva and turning it into a kayak. And then the Japanese government eventually took the kayak. So these are things that are still happening today. We still see feminist art today, and it still speaks to different issues today. So, where do we go from here?